According to World Economic Forum, critical thinking is one of the most important skills of the future. That's why, in one of my previous episodes, I built an AI Supervisory Board whose aim is to challenge my business assumptions. I built this using Claude's skill. This time, I'm giving it a real challenge of verifying seemingly impeccable results of NVIDIA, one of the most acclaimed companies of this decade. Would my supervisory board find any red flags in NVIDIA's most recent quarterly results? Let's find out. So I'm opening Claude and uploading the quarterly results of NVIDIA. I'm also pasting a command to analyze the financial performance of NVIDIA using the attached files as well as the skill that I've created in my previous episode. And I'm selecting Opus 4.6 in order to analyze the results. So after 7 minutes of thinking, Claude produced this result. So basically, the aim of my supervisory board is to look at NVIDIA's numbers from different perspectives, from the perspective of CEO, from the perspective of HR director, from the perspective of CFO, as well as head of operations. So this would be a very diversified opinion, which honestly I value very much. But instead of reading these results to you, I've asked Claude to generate a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm gonna show you in a second. So here's the number that should keep every NVIDIA investor up at night, $95 billion. That's NVIDIA's total supply-related purchase commitments at the end of the fourth quarter. To put that in perspective, that's 44% of their entire annual revenue locked into future supply contracts. And here's the part that's really unusual. In the CFO commentary, Colette Kress said something she's never said before. She called these commitments, and I'm paraphrasing here, further out in time than usual. Further out than usual from a CFO who is famous for being measured and precise with her language. I asked Claude to run a virtual board review, simulating 5 different executive perspectives analyzing the investment. And the CFO persona flagged this immediately. At $95 billion in commitments, even a modest demand correction creates write-down risk that would be material to earnings. Now let's go to slide 2 and let's talk about something the headlines completely missed. NVIDIA reported GAAP net income of $43 billion in the fourth quarter. Incredible number. But here's what most people didn't catch. $5.5 billion US dollars of that came from unrealized gains on equity securities like Intel. That includes gains from NVIDIA's investment in Intel's common stock and other strategic investments. That's not operating performance. That's paper gains on a stock portfolio. When you strip that out and look at non-GAAP net income, it's $39.6 billion US dollars. Still phenomenal, but that's an 8% gap between the headline number and the operating reality. Now let's go to the next challenge. 50%, that's the share of NVIDIA's data center revenue that comes from just 5 customers, the top cloud providers and hyperscalers. And those 5 customers are collectively expected to spend approaching $700 billion in capex this year. $700 billion. That number has gone up by $120 billion since the start of the year alone. Now, Jensen Huang was asked directly on the call whether he's confident these customers can sustain the spending. His answer was essentially, compute equals revenue. Tokens are monetized, so they have to keep spending. And he's right, logically. But here's the thing. Claude's strategy persona flagged. This logic has never been tested at this scale in a downturn. If even one major hyperscaler pauses capex for 2 quarters, not cancels, just pauses, the ripple through NVIDIA's supply chain with $95 billion in commitments on the books would be severe. The capex numbers are so large that a single high-profile pullback could trigger a sentiment cascade that causes others to hesitate. Jensen's thesis is sound at the macro level. The question is whether it survives a macro shock. Now, let's go to the next subject. Here's something Jensen said on the call that almost nobody picked up on, and I want to be precise here because the language matters. He said Chinese competitors, bolstered by recent IPOs, are making progress and have the potential to disrupt the structure of the global AI industry over the long term. That is extraordinary language from a CEO. Jensen is openly acknowledging that NVIDIA's competitive position in the world's second largest economy is deteriorating. Meanwhile, NVIDIA has approved products for Chinese customers, but has generated zero revenue from them. They don't know whether any imports will be allowed, and their first quarter guidance assumes zero data center compute revenue from China. Claude's legal and compliance persona called this out as a material uncertainty that would swing billions in either direction. And the board review noted that Jensen's public advocacy for US-China AI trade engagement adds political complexity to an already fraught regulatory environment. Finally, the architecture. This is the one that operations people will understand immediately. Right now, NVIDIA is supporting 5 architecture generations in production: Ampere, Hopper, Blackwell Ultra, and the incoming Vera Rubin. Every node, every packaging line is fully allocated. If the Vera Rubin ramp encounters yield issues at TSMC, the consequences cascade through the entire revenue trajectory because there's no slack in the system. So here's what I want you to take away from this. I uploaded 3 documents to Claude: an earnings call transcript, a CFO commentary, and a quarterly revenue spreadsheet. In a single conversation, I built a virtual board of directors with 5 executive personas, each analyzing NVIDIA from a different angle. And it caught things that most human analysts missed or chose not to highlight: the unprecedented scale of purchase commitments, the gap earnings inflation from equity gains, Jensen's candid admission about Chinese competition, and the gaming supply constraint trade-off. That is what AI-powered analysis looks like in 2026, not replacing human judgment, but giving you the tools to see what the headlines are designed to hide. If you found this useful, subscribe.